Do I have to stand? I have to stand here, don't I, and click the mouse?
Oh.
Or can I use this? Is this?
No, that's not going to work.
I should have brought a little remote. I can do it. Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's great. Okay, tips for your first job, next job, whatever it is. Now, first of all, you're like, who is this guy that they asked to come in and talk?
Yeah, I gave a wonderful introduction.
Okay, good, good. So, first of all, I'm a Razorback. I grew up in Dogtown, is what a lot of people from North Little Rock call North Little Rock. Especially the people in Little Rock call it Dogtown too. So I graduated from high school in 1986. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm married to Cheryl. She went to school here as well. She's from Mountain Home. We've been married for 20 years. And children, there's my child, Louis Philippe Clement, Louis. And I'm the prodigal son. And I don't know if you know the prodigal son story, but it's a biblical story about the father who has two sons, and they divide up the father's inheritance, and one works very hard in the fields and increases the wealth of the family and so on and so forth. And the other son, the prodigal son, guess what he does? He goes off and he squanders, right, the wealth and everything that his father gave him. I am the prodigal son. So the prodigal son returns home back to his father's farm, plantation, whatever, and his father welcomes him back with open arms and throws a big party for him and so on and so forth. So I've been welcomed back to the engineering school today, so that's the big party in my return. I'll explain a little bit of that coming up. So my education, I got a bachelor's in industrial engineering here in 1992 and an MBA from Christian Brothers in Memphis, Tennessee in 1996. Here's the prodigal son part, right? Grade point average 2.4 when I graduated. And my graduate school, I made A's and B's and had a 3.75, right? So what happened to me in college? I actually got down to the point I had a 2.01 when I was in college. And the reason was I was very much into student activities, not going out on Thursday night. That's not what I'm talking about. I like to do that too. But I was president of the Arkansas Booster Club, which was the largest student organization on campus besides the student government. I was on the student government. I was chairman of the Chancellor's Advisory Committee. I was on the board of publications that did the yearbook and the Traveler. I did Celebrity Showcase that did all of the concerts that come to town and more. So you can see what I had going on in my life at the time. And guess what? I had to study during all that too, right? Which my grade point average got hampered by my outside of school activities. So I got to the point as a junior, I had this 2.01 degree. If I had another bad semester below 2.0, I was going to go on academic probation with the school. So I had to quit everything as a junior. I just quit all those activities and I just started studying, making B's, A's, C's in all my classes. And I actually graduated. I finished all my classes and I had too many D's to graduate. I wouldn't wish that on any of you, but you're only allowed so many hours of D to graduate. I had to actually go back and take 2 classes over again to graduate. And I took statics and first semester statistics over again, which I made a D in both of those, and I made an A in both of them, and I graduated and moved on. So that was my experience at the University of Arkansas. A little bit bittersweet, some of it really great, and some of it not so great. But what I did learn was life's lessons. In high school, I was really good at everything. I could not study, I could have a 3.5, be president of this or that. But when I got to college, the competition was a lot stiffer. There's always somebody better than you, and I couldn't really do it all anymore. So I had to get down to what's important, and graduating is what's most important. So, but there is light for those of you that have a 2.5 or a 2.75 or whatever. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Get your degree, get out, and get on with life, and don't look back. But I will tell you, I have interviewed for a job just in the last year where I was not allowed to interview any further because I did not have a 3.0 in my undergraduate degree. It's hard to believe some companies do that, but they still do that. You think, once I'm out of school, and I've worked for 20 years, but it doesn't matter what I've done. They like my resume, and they want me to come in and interview, but when they ask me my grade point average, I'm now out of the running. So your grade point average is important for the rest of your life, unfortunately. So just make sure you study. So my career pathway, I want to talk about how I've gotten to where I am. I'm Director of Marketing for this orthopedic company. And I started off in industrial engineering. I worked on the shop floor doing bill of materials and routings. I would say cut a foot of stainless steel bar stock, and take it to this machine and do that to it, then take it over to this mill and then take it through the cleaning process. I was responsible for surgical instrumentation, hip replacements, knee replacements, doing all the bill of materials and routings. I did that for 3 years. It was a great learning experience, but I realized the guys that were making and the women that were making all the decisions at the company, whether something was blue or had a rough surface finish or a smooth or a highly polished surface finish, was all the marketing people. All the engineers were like, what do you think about this? And the marketing guy, no, it won't work. So that's what I want to do. I want to be the guy making all these decisions, right? So I decided to go into marketing, and I got my MBA with an emphasis in marketing so that I could help transition. It's hard to go from manufacturing into marketing. That's not a natural thing. So you need something like an MBA with an emphasis in marketing for them to say, well, he's been studying it for the last 2.5 years, let's give the guy a chance. So after that, I became product manager, and I worked at Biomedical for 6 years. The reason I left there was that when I started, there were 300 employees. It grew to 600 employees, went back down to 300 employees, and we had 6 CEOs in the 5 years that I worked there. So constantly churning through leadership. That's a terrible situation. So one of the big lessons you can learn from that is if you want to grow in your career, get with a company that's growing. If you're in a company that's going through a hard time, or the next 10 years don't look very good for the industry, you probably need to switch industries to be able to experience good personal career growth. If you stay otherwise you're waiting for somebody to retire or get fired, right, to get their job opportunity. Because if you get with a company that's growing, there's new jobs being created and new offices being opened and new opportunities. But with a stagnant business and a stagnant industry, you're going to struggle. So that's an important point.
So you worked for a couple years before you got your MBA. Did you do it while MBA while you're working?
I got my MBA at night school, 2.5 years in night study.
Night school. Did Biomedical pay for that? Or?
They paid for it all. That doesn't exist as much as it used to. I mean, you can find it at a few companies, but they paid for my whole school. And then I went to Smith & Nephew, another company in Memphis, another orthopedic company, except this one 10 times larger than Biomedical. And I was there for 10 years. I started as a product manager, and my big break came during this time. I launched the biggest product that the company had ever had at that point. So it became a $100 million product line over 5 years. So that's a big, big money maker when you're making a $100 million a year on a product. And I got the opportunity to move to Brussels, Belgium, and help open up a European office for the company. So when I was in Belgium, I was in charge of hip replacement sales in all of Europe. So I've been in every country in Europe, in Western Europe, except for Finland. That's the only country I haven't been to. So maybe we can have some time for some international stories at some point in time. But if you get that opportunity, I backpacked Europe in 1991 for 60 days with 2 buddies here from the University of Arkansas. And it completely changed my life. From the day I started working, I would go to work at Biomedical and be like, how can I get an international job? How can I work overseas? What do I have to do that? And it took me 8 years to get that opportunity. They don't just hand those out. But my backpacking trip changed my life, and then I ended up getting to live in Belgium for 2.5 years. So maybe we'll have some time to talk about that too. And then I moved into sales. Every week traveling and making sales calls with sales representatives as a technical expert. So don't think of your engineering degree as, I'm going to sit at my desk and I'm going to design this, or I'm going to automate this system, or I'm going to write procedures. If you have any sales mentality or a sales bone in your body, think about doing that at some point in time in your career. It's really important to work, you'll hear me use the phrases, inside an organization and outside the organization. Sales is the only thing that's outside the organization. Everything else is inside. And you can't run a company well or as good as you possibly could if you've never had any experience selling something at some point in your life. So it doesn't matter if you're selling, just get some sales experience at some point in time if you can. It's critical. Obviously, people have to do that in every business. You're always selling. And then another big opportunity came when I got this Strategic Director of Medical Education and Convention Services. So what is that? And I had the president of the orthopedic division crossing, just walking down the hallway. He stopped me and he said, "Vance." I'm like, "Yes, Steve." He says, "I need you to do something for me." And I'm like, "Okay." Like, he wants me to run to the front and get him, a bottle of water and come back and get it. He's like, "No, I want you to run medical education and convention services." Never even thought about doing it. I was like, holy cow, what's that? But when, the leader of your company says, "I want you to do something," I was like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. So I got to manage 31 people. So a really big jump in responsibility, budget of $10 million. I had an 18-wheeler that traveled the United States with a staff on it that was a mobile cadaveric lab, so that it would pull up in a hospital set up for the week, and doctors would come out during their breaks at lunchtime and end of the day and practice on cadaveric specimens, our procedures with our implants, with our products, that kind of thing. And then I had this department that had 18 people. All they did was service. There's your Arkansas Orthopedic Society, your American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, the Midwestern. There's meetings all over the world on orthopedics going constantly, and these 18 people shipped booze and things to manage these educational conferences. So something I'd never thought about doing. I got to manage a bunch of people, a big budget, a lot of responsibility, and it was serendipitous. I didn't plan to do it. So look for those kind of opportunities. You can see that I have a lot of diversity: engineering, manufacturing, marketing, sales, and this in particular is a service part of the business, right? I'm helping all the other departments in the company sell more of this. I'm helping sales, I'm helping marketing. So when you work in an organization, see if you can get in the parts like marketing where you're producing things and you're helping the sales force, but then also other parts of the organization like manufacturing, engineering, medical education, whatever it is, where you're a service part of the business, that your purpose in life is to help other parts of the business do their job well. It's two totally different kinds of working. One where I need to create this, I need to make this happen, and these are, we're going to get this program up and going, and other people are going to use it. And if I don't do it right, or I don't provide good service, it's going to fall on its face. So try to get into different departments and get that kind of diversity. So reasons for leaving. The number one reason why people leave companies is their direct boss. It doesn't matter what's happening with you could be working for Google right now, but if you don't like your boss, or your boss is a terrible boss, a micromanager who's in your business all the time, whatever, you'll leave. You'll leave. And that's what eventually happened to me. I was having a great career. I'd done a lot of great things. I had people saying, "Wow, you're on the fast track." And I was really happy about it. But I got a boss that came in. I worked for him for about a year, and I was absolutely miserable after all this work. So I left. And if we have some time, I had a couple of setbacks too. And sometimes it's better to cut your losses and to move on to a new company where the future looks bright and they see a lot of potential in you. And if you stay where you are and you've had a couple of setbacks, you're going to spend the next 2 or 3 years just getting back in good graces and proving yourself again. Whereas if you move to a new company, you can start fresh and move on. So it's something to think about. I had a couple of setbacks, and I hope we have time to go over them. I'm going to skip some slides. So what I do today, my company produces this product here on the left. With MAKO, we have a shark. MAKO is a kind of shark, so the shark fin is our logo. We produce a robot that has 6 degrees of freedom. The robotic arm moves around, twists around, right? It's got a high-speed burr on the end that spins 80,000 revolutions per, what is it? RPM. Yeah, so it's the revolutions per minute. Very, very high-speed burr. We have an infrared camera that tracks the robot. This is a little reflective tracking mechanism that the light bounces back and forth. This is a screen that the doctor would actually look at and watch while he's doing the surgery. And this is a console that our sales representative runs during the surgical case. So we're a very integral part of the case, actually advancing the screen, giving technical advice. The doctor would say, I want to change the position of the implant on the tibia bone, and the rep would bounce a button, move a mouse, move the implant around, and say, okay, that's good, that's where I want it to be. This robot will not let you physically go outside of your surgical plan. So you place the implants exactly where you want them to go on the CT scan of your femur and your tibia. And when you take your high-speed burr in, when you get to the edge of that surgical plan, you physically feel like you're hitting a wall. You can't go outside of your surgical plan.